Hello, this is Pastor Rosemary's Final Prophecy Watch. I would like to go over a book that is extremely interesting, and a book that is written by Peter J. Carroll, who wrote this book called Liber Null and Psychonaut, An Introduction to Chaos Magic. Now, chaos magic is a system of magic that people who are extremely intelligent practice and teach, that has to do with, in some of the books that I'll share with you at another time, it goes over how that the future is based on mathematical probabilities and how to calculate those. And that's not what this particular video is about. This particular video is about a subject of understanding the fact that there are opposites and duality in our world. And of course there's all kind of gradations on a continuum in between something light and dark. There is all kinds of variations and all kinds of colors and all kinds of in the rainbow and all of that. There's all kinds of gradations and all kinds of points on a continuum. But this book gives us a way to organize some of the duality and to understand it, so that people can stop fighting about whether or not something should be all one way and never another way. There should be all love and no hate and all of that, because it seems like lately there's just been so much talk about the concept of hate. So obviously, people want us to look at this duality of love and hate. This is something that we need to look at. It's not being given to us by the general media for no reason. It's being given to us so that we learn, so that we understand, so that we use our intelligence and begin to use our intelligence to tame our emotions. Emotions are not bad. Emotions are the very spice of life. Emotions give you meaning. Emotions give you fulfillment. Emotions are extremely important, and the emotions are something that will be part of the part of the body of light that you will, the glorified body that you'll have in the next world, will come from your emotional imprint, how you feel, because that's who you are. Now, but we need to tame it so that we don't become in such a state where we're out of control to the point where we cannot enjoy our fulfillment. So we need to understand it, especially because the world is very populated now, and we're beginning to be given secrets by many ascended masters, and many ancient books are being opened, and many people who have a lot of knowledge are giving out a lot of information to help us understand how we can tame our emotions and utilize our egos in order to bring our soul to a state where it can be immortal and a glorified body, which will be in a state that we will enjoy. Now, everybody's going to enjoy something different. What might be considered Hades to one person might be heaven to another. So everybody can be, in what they find appealing, because God created us as vessels. We're just pots of clay that God has created. And he created each vessel for a different purpose and function, and that vessel is happiest when it's performing its function. Not when it's performing the function of something else, but when it's performing the proper function, that's when there's the most happiness for that tool, whether it's a book or a computer or a pen that you're using to write with. You can use things for all kinds of purposes, but they're most fulfilling when they're being used for what they were designed for, and we're talking about intelligent design. Now, I'm going to just touch on, we're going to talk about death and the opposite of death is not life, according to Liber Null. It is the opposite of death is sex. Life includes both sex and death. So if you want to get beyond death, you have to get beyond sex. So that's one of the first things. So what we need to talk about is that as we leave this body, the Kabbalists and many rabbis teach that the, especially female rabbis, teach that the soul is the baby that's being formed, the embryo within us, and the body is the placenta that we have. The body is like the placenta. And I did used to teach Lamaze because I am an RN, and so it's something I can speak of with a little bit of knowledge. And that is that we want to talk about when the child, because doctors think that mothers have no knowledge, of their bodies or instinct, but we do. But from even a medical point of view, I did teach about it, and the point is when the body is there to feed and be a medium between the creator and the body. So we have the body being the placenta between the baby and the mother being the creator, the baby being the soul, and the placenta being the body that we have now. And just like the umbilical cords are giving blood into the baby and it circulates to the placenta, just like it does that, we are feeding our soul, but not with physical blood. We're feeding it with the blood of our intention, our consciousness, our intention. And that's why Christ says to store your treasures up in heaven and not on earth, because that's where your next life is going to be. And another point that became clear to me one evening when I was thinking about these things is that all of creation, everything in the universe is the soul. Everything that is not the self, or what we comprehend is not the self, because self and not self, it teaches in magic and many other magic books that is called the monad, and that you have self and not self, and that actually everything is self. It's a perception of self and not self. So we talk about service to self, service to others, but it's all really the same thing. If we love others as we love ourselves, as Christ taught, we do all love others as we love ourselves. If we're hard on ourselves, we're hard on other people. If we hate ourselves, we hate others. If we love ourselves, we love others. It's very simple. It's not that complicated. And if we understand that the more we care for the universe, and our own body is part of the universe, part of an exterior, and then those people around us are another ring of reality of the monad outside, of what we can start to consider not self, not self, not self. We start to think that has nothing to do with me, that doesn't affect me, that has nothing to do with me. It all affects you and all has something to do with you. And you have to treat everything in the universe as if it is your baby and you're the placenta, and the only function of your body, you have to keep it in good shape because it has to perform to keep the baby in good standing so it can be born properly, and the soul has to be nurtured by this body. This body is to nurture the placenta of the body, to nurture the soul, which is the baby. And it's the universal soul. Now, as we pass from this world, from this body is like the placenta that comes it dies after the soul passes. The soul passes first into the next realm. and it goes into the universal soul. What we thought didn't affect us, what we thought wasn't self. That's where your consciousness is going to go. So if you're not taking care of it, then you're going to go into something that's not cared for. If you take care of it, you'll go into something that's cared for. And just like the placenta will then kind of, degrade and die, but in a slow manner, because the baby, it has to be healthy when the baby's born. It will pass once the consciousness is transferred. That's why when someone passes, like your loved ones that went before you, your ancestors, they went into the world that they created for you. So they're part of you on that level. Their consciousness is part of you on that level. And your consciousness will be part of the universe after you leave, after your body leaves, and you'll go in and become part of it. And when you become part of your new universe, if you're a responsible person, you will rule the universe if you're a responsible person. If you want to be the creator, you can be, but you have to be responsible. Because whoever is responsible, whoever takes the responsibility, where the buck stops, that is where that is the point where you can be as powerful as you want to be, as long as you're willing to take responsibility. If you don't want any responsibility, then that will be your lot. So the people in the past that wanted a lot of responsibility, they're God to you in this lifetime. And then as you pass, and the blood, just like the blood goes into the baby and all of that, and the cord is cut, that's how it works. So you had better make sure that you're treating yourself and everybody else with responsibility and with respect, and that you're creating what you want to go into. If you're someone that wants to go into a place that is difficult, because for whatever reason, then you're not being responsible, and you won't have a lot of power. If on the other hand you want it to be good for everybody, and you want it to be good, and you want it to be a reflection of the true desire of life, of creator, of nature, which is to make a wonderful paradise for us all to live in, we can all enjoy and be happy in, then you will have a lot of responsibility, because you will be a very powerful god or goddess or creator or creatrix, and you will be a very powerful being, because you'll be the one who took responsibility. I mean, when you're in a group or you're in a situation, whoever has the skill and the knowledge and can take responsibility, that is the most important person. Like when I worked in the hospital, people, of course, the person who has the most skill, whether it was the nurse starting the IV, or the nurse anesthetist starting the IV, or whoever it was, like no one can get started. Even the doctors can't get started until they get that one nurse in there who can start the IV. And if he or she cannot do it, or usually a she, if she can't do it, then they might have to get a surgeon to cut that open and get that vein so that they can get in there. There's no silliness in those kinds of situations about who's best, and there's not a lot of fighting about who's best and who knows more, because you can either do it or you can't. You're either able to do it or you're not. And that's the way it is in reality, and when we're talking about something as important as passing into the next life, because that's why you don't have to fear death. So as we talk about death, and as we talk about these dualities, now you'll know this understanding that comes from many years of studying magic and studying Kabbalah or Kabbalah. I used to call it Kabbalah till I heard it pronounced properly as Kabbalah. But I've been studying Kabbalah or Kabbalah since the early 90s, before 1995, because I was studying it. I was studying Wicca, and Wicca taught Kabbalah, because magic is based on Kabbalah. So it was before 1995, but 1995 is when I joined an order. I joined an order that was called the Eternal Order of the Golden Dawn, because the people I was in a Wiccan group left because they were in the military, and so I joined something that it was like a mail order thing, but they, it was interesting, and I got to fly there and meet them and have a lot of. I was there for many years, and then I started my own order at one point. But I'm just saying it was a wonderful experience. I've learned a lot. There's a lot of good teachings there. I believe it's now called the Esoteric Order of the Golden Dawn, but I'm not sure. Okay. Now, I study chaos magic because I like to study it. And I always told people that chaos magic is like when you're shuffling the tarot cards and the other forms of magic that don't agree with chaos magic, that are more into a lot of order, which, I like too, are like when you're laying the cards down and you're laying them out. So there's another duality, chaos and order. So we'll start with that one for, because everybody likes to say that one's bad and one's good and all of that. And male, female, dark, light, all of that. Well, let's get into it. Okay, this is page, 76, Liber Null, the alphabet of desire. Okay, I'm not going to read everything to you here. I'm just going to touch on some points. We have the symbol here for Mercury, and sigil magic is used a lot too in chaos magic, and sigil magic is very important. We have Mercury, sulfur, and earth or salt symbols, okay? Those kind of represent the three Hebrew mother letters of Aleph, Mem, and Shin. Aleph, Mem, and Shin, okay? Which are similar. These aren't exactly that, because Aleph is air, and Mem is water, and Shin is fire, and Mercury and sulfur and salt or earth are not those elements, but they have a sort of a similarity. And the mother letters come before the father. The three mother letters come before the father letters of Tetragrammaton or Yud He Vav He, of which Yud He Vav He is the permutation of the sign of Aries the Ram, because it denotes spring and the beginning of springtime and that kind of thing. Okay, so we're going to get into table number 2, emotional duality. Okay, we're talking about emotional duality. We have coagula et solve. It's coagulate and dissolve, or coagulate and dissolve. So that's something. I also have studied physical alchemy, various forms of it. So I've studied this in a physical way, where you have to dissolve something and break it down before you can build it up. They do that in the military. They break it down and they build you up in the way they want you to be, for whatever their purposes are. So these are concepts where you cannot digest you cannot take nutrition from your food unless you break it down and digest it. So breaking something down isn't always a bad thing. And if it's bad is part of life, it's all part of life. It's just about managing it to make it pleasant. Some people don't want it to be pleasant, and all of us on different times of our lives, we all have times when we act like brats, and sometimes we act like saints. We all have all of these things inside of us, and anybody who hides their dark side or their brat side or their evil side is a very scary person indeed, because that person has a passive aggressive undercurrent that will come out and bite you. So you got to be careful of someone who doesn't admit their bad side. Okay. So we have here in the emotional duality in this Liber Null and Psychonaut, we have the principle of attraction coming together. We have sex, love, desire, pleasure, and elation. So we have the symbol of the moon for sex, the symbol of Venus for love. We have the symbol of Jupiter for desire, the symbol of water for pleasure, and the symbol looks like, that's for air. It's a symbol for air, for elation. And then we have on the solve side, or dissolve side, we have the principle of repulsion, separation, avoidance. We have Saturn standing for death. We have the sigil of Mars standing for hate. The symbol of Mercury standing for fear. And the symbol of fire standing for pain. And the symbol of Earth standing for depression. Now, we're going to get you next here to this chaos magic sigil. Very important. we have here, the things that I just showed you are broken down into a very specific, detailed graph here, a circular graph. It's similar to the original Kabbalah that you look at the drawings and images of the Kabbalah or the Kabbalah where they're circular. It's very similar. It has sections of the pie. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It has 6 sections here. There's 8 of these, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, as memory serves. So we have death, opposite from sex. We have desire, opposite from fear. And we have hate, opposite from love. They say that the opposite of love is not hate. It is, but the opposite of love. Let's say that love and hate go together, and you can't get away from it. You just can't get away from it. Love and hate go together. Fear and desire go together. Death and sex go together. You want to get rid of death, you got to get rid of sex. Or it has to be modified somehow. So it has smaller specific aspects here, much like how an astrology chart has 30 degrees, and has decans, yeah? And even the rosary has decans, yeah? The rosary, yeah? Okay. You can get those at the Daughters of St. Paul, Pauline books. You can get those there. They're great bracelets. So we have, the breakdown gets into some very specific things, which we're going to look at over here. And because it breaks it down more easily. So we have sex and death. We have release and dissolution. I wrote a song called The Dissolution of Your Soul. And it's funny, maybe that was some kind of release for me. We have destruction and lust. They have sigils here too that you can use for doing magic, yeah? We have atrophy and also frustration, fear and desire, terror and joy, fright and attraction, aversion and greed, hate and love. We also have anger and rapture, aggression and passion, loathing and attachment. We have laughter and laughter. There's no opposite to laughter, so that's a solar. Laughter has the image of the sun here, the circle with the dot in the center. It's like sort of a symbol of a monad, except a monad has more of a circle in the center. But laughter is the one thing that doesn't really have an opposite. So laugh and all the world laughs with you. It doesn't matter if they're laughing at you. It doesn't matter if they're laughing with you. If you're laughing, you're pretty much in heaven. Then we have conceptualization, I believe. I'm not sure about that one. Then there's union, goes into pain and pleasure, depression, elation. Then we have the Kabbalah or Kabbalah. It says here, this shall be my Kabbalah, or my Kabbalah. Kabbalah with a Kabbala. Now we have the Sephirah of Keter, it says Kia. And the Sephirah of Chokhmah, it says will. And the Sephirah of Binah, it says perception. And the invisible Sephirah of Da'ath, it says death. In the Sephirah of Chesed, it says desire. And the Sephirah of Gebura, it says hate. That's where Mars is found and Jupiter is found in desire. In the Sephira of Tiferet, it says laughter. That's where the Christ consciousness is. That's why when Jesus was crucified on the cross in those movies about Jesus, you always hear the Roman guards laughing. That's why. That's the 666. That's the solar logos, where the solar deity is sort of hung there to give to the world. It's the moment when all all sin is turned into harmony and love in the Sephira of Tiferet and beauty because of the sacrifice of the self for the not self. And then we talked about that earlier when we talked about giving to the universal soul. Then we have in the Sephira of Netzach, we have love. That's where Venus is. In the Sephira of Hod, we have fear. That's where Mercury and Thoth. In the Sephira of Yesod, where the moon is, we have sex. In the Sephira of Malkut, where the Malka, the bride, sits, we have pain, and that's the physical world. We have pleasure below, and then we have below that, and sort of in the underworld where more of the demons lie. The demons, I guess pleasure would come there. And then we have elation and depression, sort of like, so it says pain, pleasure, elation, depression. Now, this is his very well constructed Kabbalah, because you have to make up your own magic. And that's pretty easy to do, because you have to at one point break away from what you've been taught and make up your own. But it's there's two times that magic are at its peak, and that's when you just first start, and then when you begin to do it on your own. I guess the third time would be when you really feel that you've become a part of something bigger than yourself, which I feel like right now, because we're all being able to share what we've learned, and that makes me feel like I'm a part of something bigger than myself. And there's one part here that I didn't quite, I have to look this one up. Yeah, that's right. This one is conceptualization. So we'll have to read about that more later. But I wanted to make sure I had the right idea there. Okay, so that is pretty much all I wanted to share with you. But this is an excellent book, and it's something that I believe it has many wonderful artistic drawings in it. It has Liber Lux and Liber Null. Let there be light, let there be dark. It talks about so many very interesting things. And I would highly recommend this book by Peter J. Carroll to everyone who's interested in these kinds of subjects. Okay, thank you. And we'll talk to you again soon.